on, guys, and welcome back to another winter forecast. My name is Andrew Heichman, and I'm the lead forecaster here in WW16. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day today. So, for today's question of the day, I am wondering, what accomplishment are you most proud of? You leave your comment down below, and I just might heart your comment. Anyways, guys, so for today's video, we do have a lot of changes compared to last winter video in terms of, what we expect in terms of things. There's been a lot of changes actually here on the models, as well as my personal forecast. So stay tuned for that. So today we'll be taking a look at some models. Then we'll be moving on to that exciting forecast that that I made in terms of temperature outlooks, in terms of precipitation outlooks, and I'm actually adding the overall snowfall forecast for today's video. So if you guys do enjoy it, make sure you do leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new for more content. It's greatly appreciated, and I appreciate everyone's support. But anyways, guys, let's go ahead and get on in with this. So, alright, so we're basically taking a look here at the model here. You might be kind of wondering what these letters down here mean. Well, they're pretty simple. So S stands for September, O is October, N is November. So it's pretty much just the first letter of each month. So September, October, November, November, December, January, December, January, and February. Now this is around your heart of winter. December, January, and February. So that's where we need to be paying attention to. We need to be looking at this part of the graph moving up here. That average point is showing right about here. So basically, if you're in these negative values here, from pretty much 0.5 all the way down to 2.5, this pretty much shows that you are in a La Nina. If you're in this for, I believe, more than 6 months. That is considered a deep La Nina, or a La Nina in general. Anything above that, from 0.5 positive to 3.0, that's showing an El Nino. And then anywhere between this ground, this is what they call the neutral. So that's pretty much your normal conditions and neutral. La Nina is whenever the Pacific Ocean is cooler on the eastern side, near the equator. El Nino is the opposite of that. Where in the eastern Pacific, near the equator, it's relatively more warmer, which ends up leading to more moisture being brought into the United States. So, for this graph, we can kind of see here, we have the statistical average, we have the dynamic average. I'm not trying to make this too difficult, but pretty much we're around the area here of maybe like negative 0.7, negative 0.6, around in that area. So that's actually signifying that we actually have the chance for a weaker La Nina compared to the last video, which is showing some changes in what we could expect later on down the line. So that's what we're dealing with in terms of that. So we are now expecting a relatively weak La Nina, or we're pushing kind of close to near neutral ground, but we are still expected to see generally a La Nina, pretty much around that negative 0.7 mark. So let's go ahead and take a look here at this next graph, and we'll go ahead and see what's going on in terms of that. Alright, so taking a look here at this next graph, we have, kind of a few things going on here. So we're still paying attention to that December, January, and February. This is still that heart of, winter here. We're not really paying attention to these other side of things. This isn't really relevant for what we're trying to forecast for. That's more of, further down the line. But we're looking mostly here at December, January, and February. Now, the blue indicates a La Nina forecast probability. So this is the chance of the winter having a La Nina, which is kind of now kind of a bit lower than it was before, because we're actually showing a little bit more weaker values here. So this is kind of showing around a 72-ish% of seeing a La Nina. Now we do take a look over here. We do have another bar. This actually stands for the neutral. So that ends on neutral. So pretty much that negative 0.5 to that 0.5 mark. So between that margin that we just saw on the last slide, we have a higher chance now of that being here. So it's around a 26-27% chance over here in terms of that. So that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of what this, what we're expecting. So this is actually going up. This is actually trending upwards, the neutral for this winter. And pretty much we do have the La Nina trending down a bit. However, we do still expect a La Nina. We're actually in a deep La Nina, which we'll take a look here in this next slide. But here for pretty much El Nino is completely rolled out at this point. We really don't expect El Nino for this winter. So what we're likely going to see is a weak La Nina into a near neutral condition. So let's go ahead and take a look at the current conditions here in the Pacific. All right, so we're taking a look here at the graph for the current conditions that's going on in the Pacific Ocean. So right now, we go ahead and look at our latest value. We're looking at a pretty moderate La Nina. We're at a negative 0.9. Now, if you kind of see in these last few days or so, it almost looks like it's starting to trend more upwards. It could be signifying that this can continue to trend in this favor, but we'll just have to keep on monitoring that. But generally, we have been in a relatively strong downtrend. I mean, really ever since September, you can kind of see that the downtrend has been taking place, pretty much diving into a more deeper La Nina with those, below average sea surface temperatures by about, maybe 1 degree Celsius, which, it doesn't really sound like much whenever it sounds like that, but honestly, it does a lot in terms of this. So that's basically what we're taking a look here at the current conditions. So we're taking a look here at the typical La Nina pattern, which is, kind of in effect for this winter, as we're seeing, kind of like that weak to moderate La Nina throughout December, January, and February. So we typically have our polar jet stream. This is just your jet stream. It dips down through the central parts of the United States, going through the central Great Plains, kind of takes a northern, pretty much a northern shift here around the Tennessee Valley area. Now, this does actually lead to relatively more wet conditions across pretty much the bits of the Ohio Valley, moving down into pretty much the Tennessee Valley. We do have a bit of the Midwest included in this zone, and it does kind of stretch up to bits of the extreme western parts of the Northeast. Now, typically, we do also have another, kind of a wet, more wet than normal expected zone here, pretty much across the upper Northwest. Those more favorable areas here, for more wet conditions. But we'll get into that whenever we look at the forecast that I've made. So, with your typical La Nina, we do kind of, still typically see, more drier conditions across pretty much the southwest, moving into the southeast, in which, just a hint for you guys, this is probably going to be the case for this winter with that typical La Nina pattern. Now, this does actually bring some cooler temperatures for bits of the upper northwest, and which is actually something we're going to be looking at. All right, so we're taking a look here at the temperature outlook for across the country in terms of what we can expect this winter. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with the below average temperatures, pretty much across the nation. We are expecting relatively below average temperatures across much of the Northwest, kind of moving its way into the bits of the western, northern Great Plains here. With that typical La Nina pattern in which we saw, we are expecting those cooler temperatures to kind of occur inside of this zone. So, we actually do have another shade of blue. Okay, so we are more confident that we are going to see those below average temperatures pretty much for these areas in the darker blue. We're more moderately, more expecting those cooler temperatures to be, existent throughout much of this region. This does include bits of, pretty much northwestern Oregon, pretty much all of Washington State, moving into northern Idaho, and bits of central and northern Montana. Now, this does actually include bits of western, North Dakota, and an extreme bit of northwestern South Dakota as well. So, in this blue area, we do typically expect, with more confidence, that those cooler temperatures will definitely be persistent over the winter. Okay, so now we're moving on to the third shade of, the temperatures that we're expecting. It's kind of a large shade, as you might see here. This is actually expecting above average temperatures. This is expecting above average temperatures for much of the country this year. There's a lot of things that are in place that's actually causing this to happen, in which you may have seen, this is a dramatic change from the last forecast I did. That's because we have a lot more information going on. We also do have, a lot more guidance, in terms of things. So, we are expecting relatively above average temperatures for most of the country. Pretty much, the southern parts of the country and the southwestern parts of the country, leading all the way up into the northeast. Now, this is kind of a slightly, kind of leaning towards the above average. Like, this isn't dramatically above average, but we do have more shades we'll look at here in a second. But generally, areas in this kind of a shade kind of just shows that, it's kind of leaning towards the above average temperature mark in terms of this winter. Okay, so following that, we do have our second shade here of relatively above average temperatures. So now we're kind of moving into that, more likely zone of seeing above average temperatures. Now, we're going to take a look here at the third shade. We do have a third shade because we are expecting relatively warm temperatures. This third shade is pretty confident that we're going to see, well above average temperatures for this winter. All right, so now we're taking a look here at the final shade in terms of, the temperatures that are above average. We are expecting well above average temperatures for bits of the southeast. This does include bits of eastern Texas, moving all the way up into pretty much coastal North Carolina. We are very confident that we're going to see above average temperatures across this region, in which, honestly, this could limit some snowfall down the line, in which, we'll see in that snowfall outlook that we're going to be taking a look here at the end of the video. So let's go and take a look here at the precipitation forecast. So taking a look here at the first shade of a below average precipitation, this does stretch for, pretty much bits of the western country, moving all the way down to the southeast. Now you might see that kind of dip that we have going on here. This is actually, pretty typical with those La Nina patterns, in which we saw kind of those more wet conditions, across the Ohio Valley, moving into the Midwest. But we'll actually see that whenever we take a look here at the further shade. So let's go ahead and bring up our second shade of the, the precipitation in terms of the below average expected. For this second shade, we are more confident that we are expecting those below average precipitation, numbers. They pretty much do stretch off across the southwest, moving into the central Great Plains. This does include bits of central and western Texas. There also is another sliver here, pretty much across Florida, moving into pretty much the Georgia, South Carolina Empire here, in which, near the coastal regions. We're definitely expecting, less precipitation with that typical La Nina, in which we saw, the previous slides back. In terms of, drier conditions are usually more persistent across much of the southern United States. So let's go and take a look here at the above average precipitation outlook, and we'll go ahead and see what's in store for the rest of the country. Okay, so here's the areas we are more confident that the the precipitation will be more well above average. This does include bits of the Midwest, moving into actually the Northeast here, as you can see. This does, move into the upper Northwest as well. We do have another shade of relatively above average precipitation expected for much of the Northwest. Now, with your typical La Nina, we did see that there is, more of wet conditions across the Northwest, as well as bits of, pretty much the eastern part, the eastern central part of the country. Like I said, the Midwest moving into the Northeast. So we do have another shade here of the, overall above average precipitation outlook, and which we'll actually take a look at right now. Okay, so here's the second and final shade of the overall precipitation outlook. No, we're even relatively more confident in these areas in darker green, pretty much showing that precipitation is going to be well above average in terms of, we could get the potential for more storms to go across these regions, and potentially, depending on the temperature, that can lead to potentially more snowstorms across these areas. So this does include bits of the upper Northwest, the extreme upper Northwest, for bits of, Washington State, moving into central Idaho, moving into pretty much central and western Montana. Now, we do have that other sliver here pretty much across the Ohio Valley, stretches in through, pretty much like St. Louis area, all the way up to pretty much near Buffalo, New York, in that above average precipitation outlook. So let's go ahead and take a look here at that exciting snowfall forecast for the 2021 through 2022 season. Okay, so now before we get into that, I just wanted to go ahead and say, if you guys are enjoying this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to the channel. It's greatly appreciated, and everyone's support is definitely appreciated. So, alright, so let's go ahead and take a look here at the snowfall forecast in terms of what we can expect across bits of the country this winter. Okay, so we're looking at relatively below average snowfall for bits of the southern United States. Now, this does take in effect those drier conditions as well as those warmer temperatures. Now, relatively across this area, we're kind of slightly leaning into the potential for less snowfall across these areas. You relatively rarely see snowfall across these areas. Maybe in the western parts, with those upper elevations, but we are generally expecting less snowfall to occur in the southern bits of the country. Now, believe it or not, we do have another shade of below average. So let's go and take a look at that. Okay, so this is our second shade of relatively below average snowfall expected. This does include, a lot of the lower kind of southeast region, stretching from pretty much the coastal side of Texas all the way down through Florida and into pretty much, the southern part of, South Carolina. We are more confident that we're not going to see as much snowfall across these regions this year, which to some of you, that's a good thing. But to some of you snow lovers, definitely that's kind of a disappointing thing. But, don't be, 100% let down by this, because, anywhere, even during whatever pattern you have, everywhere is still pretty much accessible for snow. I mean, unless you live like in Florida, which, it's kind of rare to see snow in that area. But generally, just don't get your hopes down in terms of that, because you can still see, this does not really rule out, the chances of you seeing snow at all. This just means that we're relatively, more confident that, below average snowfall than normal is expected. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into the above average areas of we can expect in terms of the snowfall. Now, this actually gets pretty interesting. Okay, so we have this relatively above average area. This does expand, quite a bit of distance across the upper northwest, moving into pretty much, the east central United States. So in this area, we were kind of leaning to the above average chances of snowfall. So pretty much here across the, near the Ohio Valley, we're more confident in seeing snow. Those temperatures are slightly above normal. However, we are seeing more wet conditions, which can lead to more storms and overall potential for more snow. So that's why we're putting this area here in the shade. Now, across the upper northwest, we are actually expecting relatively cooler temperatures in which we saw, with the the above average precipitation expected as well. So if you have cooler temperatures and you have above average precipitation, that pretty much just shows that you're in store for a good winter this year, and potentially we could see a lot of snow falling across the northwest. So let's go and take a look here at the second shade of the overall snowfall that's expected this year. Okay, so unfortunately there is no second shade here for bits of the central United States. Due to those warmer temperatures, maybe some storms can be limited in that factor. But, like I said before, you can't 100% rule out, your chance of seeing any snow, because pretty much all the United States, or a lot of the United States, is definitely going to see some snow this year. Now, here's where we move into that second shade here. We do have, an even second, more confident, stage here across the upper northwest in terms of we can expect, a lot more snowfall. Like I said, this does, kind of take in consideration those wet, more wet conditions, as well as your more colder temperatures. Now, I have a surprise for you guys. There's even a third shade here showing that, we could potentially see more snowfall across the upper northwest. So, let's go and take a look at that. Alright, so now we're moving into the final shade across the upper northwest. This does include pretty much all of Washington State, moving into northern Idaho, as well as pretty much the majority here of Montana. And this blue shade, we are highly confident that we're going to see well above average snowfall, because you have your well above average, precipitation, as well as your well below average temperatures, in which overall, those two conditions alone can really put together some pretty good snowmakers across the upper northwest. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video for this winter outlook. We'll probably be doing another one here maybe sometime around December. But anyways, guys, if you did enjoy it, make sure you do leave a thumbs up. It would be greatly appreciated. I hope everyone has a wonderful day today, and just know that you guys matter and that you guys are great. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.